This is Remembering Christmas, Episode 1, Traditions.
Merry Christmas, and welcome to the first episode of Remembering Christmas, a special McGregor podcast. I'm Mark Bricker, and hosting along with me this year is Danielle Flood. Welcome, Danielle.
Hey there. Thank you.
Yeah, so glad to have you. This is going to be a lot of fun, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
And every single Thursday in December, a brand new episode of Remembering Christmas will be delivered to the folks podcast players. Those that are hopefully that have subscribed to McGregor Podcast, they'll get that. And if they aren't subscribed, I would encourage them to, now's a good time to subscribe and share it with your friends. Let them know about this special series of Remembering Christmas. So what is this special Christmas podcast all about, Danielle?
So we're going to talk about all the things Christmas. We're going to have 4 episodes where we're remembering both the traditions and the reasons we celebrate Christmas together. So the real reason of the season and all the fun that comes in between.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about food too.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
I love that. Can't wait for that episode. Yeah, and actually, I think that one's next week, isn't it? Yes, episode 2. I know, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, so this episode, this particular one, we're going to talk about traditions, and probably a lot of these get played out in the context of family, so we'll use that phrase maybe a lot, family traditions, but it could be a tradition of just something you do as an individual as well, but a lot of these are played out in that context of things we do together as a family. So what we did to kind of help us get started, actually I say we, our executive producer, Christian Miller, throw his name in there, who is putting all this together and making sure everything falls into place like it needs to. He did a survey, sent it out to our entire McGregor staff. Anybody that works here, including our school, had the opportunity to participate in this particular survey. And one of the questions we asked on the survey was, what are some of your Christmas traditions that you do with your family? So we got a chance to hear what other people, and we're going to share some of our own in just a minute for ourselves individually, but I thought it'd be fun just to look through some of these and see some that might stand out to us as we look at these. There were some that you would expect, some familiar things like, we like to go to the Christmas Eve program or Christmas Eve service at McGregor together and maybe do something afterwards. But did anything stand out on that list to you that you thought, oh, how sweet or how cool, or maybe that's a good idea?
Well, the reading of Luke 2, I think you see in, commercials or, in culture today, it's like the quintessential thing to do. But the action of sitting down and reading it or having someone in your family focus on verbalizing that as a group, as a unit, I think is really, really special. Yeah,
I do too. And there were several that talked about that in the survey, doing that, and some with even some unique twist. Have you ever tried anything or seen anybody that's done a unique way to just read, instead of just sitting down and having someone read it?
Well, okay, so this is a little confession, but we used to come home from the Christmas Eve service, and then I would make another service for our family.
Ooh.
And it had a bulletin, and 3 or 4 people had a bulletin, and I'd make them. I'd say, okay, we're going to pray, and then we're going to do the Bible reading, and we're going to do this and that. And it was something that it was fun for me to.
Yeah. Now, how old were you?
Probably 7, 8, 9. I did it years in a row.
So you were already producing your own services at 7 or 8 years old.
Well, and my siblings participated too. But
Yeah.
it was just something that we could kind of, do together. And there's the artistic side of it that I see now, God using those skills, but also, we loved our church family, and it was part of that.
Oh, that's awesome. That is really neat.
So other people did it too. Yeah.
One of the ones that stood out on this survey, and we're going to keep these anonymous so that if we ever ask people to do this again, they won't be hesitant to do this. But this person said they were born on Christmas Eve. So, all right, that's tough having your birthday.
It's a hard life.
So I was born on Christmas Eve, and a big tradition was that we would wait to set up the tree on my birthday after my father got home from working a half day. So he's talking about Christmas Eve, and they would wait to set up the Christmas tree till that day. His dad would get home from work early. He would bring the tree home, and we'd make the afternoon of decorating the tree as an honor to my birthday. So they made his birthday feel special. I thought that was neat. I found out years later that we waited until the 24th to get the tree because my dad could get it for $5. So maybe it was special, but it was also very cost effective for Dad.
Hey, that's a good note.
Yeah.
'Cause it doesn't always have to cost a lot.
That's right. However, my mom really tried to make the day special for me. We would go to the cousin's house for my birthday dinner, then exchange gifts with the family. Then on Christmas, Santa, in quotes, would come and give us our gifts, and the cousins would come down to our house for Christmas dinner. So here's a mom and dad that are doing their best to make a son that is born the day before Christmas still feel special about his birthday. So I thought that was kind of neat. What are some? You mentioned something you had as a tradition as a child. What are some traditions that you and your family have now around Christmas?
Yeah. So I have little kids right now. My kids are 10, 8, and 5. So we have a lot of energy going on at Christmas time. And we try to make the whole month of Christmas special. So some of that involves like stringing popcorn and cranberry early on in the season for decoration. So that pays off long term.
Making your own decorations.
Yeah. So that makes the family feel, festive. We're doing something together. Quality time is important to us. And then we get to enjoy it for the rest of the season. And again, it has a little bit of that value to it.
Do you think many people still string popcorn? Because you see that on Hallmark, and I'm like, does anybody still do that? But now I know, yes, the Floods, they're still stringing popcorn.
Yes. No, I think people do. It's one of those, it has a feeling of nostalgia. Even if you didn't do it as a kid, it feels like you should have. Yeah. So if you missed out, then maybe you start it. And it doesn't have to be every year either. It's one of those things that if it works, it's fun.
Is it hard to do that?
It takes time.
Okay.
But it's not hard.
Yeah.
And if you're all doing it together and, have some music going and maybe some hot cocoa, apple cider.
It is a Hallmark moment over there at the Flood House. That's exactly with the music playing, the montage of stringing up your popcorn. And so then you use that to decorate later. So
yeah, it's very fun. Another thing that we try to do is to go stocking shopping. So we like to do Christmas stockings, and this came from my husband's family, and shout out to the Floods, but they used to split up, and the husband and daughter would go one way, and the mom and the son would go the other way, and they would shop for the other child. So each sibling got to choose elements for their sibling stocking, and then they would meet up, swap, and then go the other way and choose for the other person. So mom and dad got to, Anyway, so we've done that every year, and the kids love it. It's an event in our family. We try to do it mid-December, sometimes sooner or later. But then I think it shows the kids a little bit of that selflessness. They get to choose for their siblings, and then, make those surprises happen.
Yeah.
And inevitably, we always meet somewhere in the store, and we're like, don't look.
Yeah.
Covering it up and hiding, and then we wrap those up. And
you think you'd almost need to go to 2 different stores, but it'd be hard to do that too. But
yeah. We could.
You figured it out.
Oh, we did add. We were going to go to Christ Center this year because the kids are older, and some of those books or devotionals are only found there. And so if we can add 1 or 2 of those to the family tradition, I think that'd be super.
Yeah.
So you can add.
Do you think that's something you'll continue to do as they continue to get older?
I think so.
Yeah.
I've seen, so traditions come from examples, I've seen some of Nate's parents' examples of still buying stocking things if we're up at Christmas. She'll put 1 or 2 things in ours too, which is nice. It's just one of those ways to show a little bit of love. And so
Macy and I don't do stockings, but when we were at my brother's house this past Christmas, they wanted to just have this old-fashioned Christmas.
Yeah.
And it was a spectacular week in just so many ways. But they do the stockings, but they had stockings for us.
There you go.
And so that was just so much fun to have a stocking with my name on it. It was packed full of stuff in there.
That's really fun. So now, were they traditional useful stocking things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of it was. Yeah, it was mostly useful things like a really neat flashlight or pair of socks or whatever.
New razor blades are in our list.
I didn't get any razor blades, but it was a lot of fun to be a part of that. You mentioned music a moment ago. That's, to me, that I grew up in a house where music was a big thing. My mom was played the piano and the organ, had a great voice, and so they were always playing music. And so for me, Christmas is music. So I'm ready to start playing the Christmas music like 2 months ahead of time, and Macy won't let me. She's like, no, Thanksgiving hasn't happened yet. You cannot do it.
It's true.
So
Do you get tired of it though?
I don't, because there's so much Christmas music out there. So I have so many types of Christmas music I like. So I do start listening before Thanksgiving, but it's with my earbuds and,
Right.
you know.
So in my professional life, I do a lot of graphic design early for the different schedules. So I'm listening to Christmas music in October.
Yeah.
And then I do start to get tired of it, though. I love Christmas music of all kinds.
I just, that's one thing I don't get tired of. One of the other traditions that, well, we've had, Macy and I have a few, but one that has happened kind of over the last probably 10 or 12 years is the watching of the Hallmark Christmas movies. And, you know, there was a season, I think it's kind of gone like this. It's kind of picked up and there were lots of them, and now we don't watch quite as many as we used to, but that's something that you know, people say, you watch those movies? And I'm like, yeah, that's something we do together. And so, you know, they're not always that good, but
that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah. We're doing it.
It's all about the season.
Yeah, one year, this was probably been 6 or 7 years ago. We were at my parents' house, and my brother and his wife were there, and so there was and our nephew Michael. So there were 7 of us, and I had, you know, all those movies are so predictable. You know exactly, you know, the plot, you know what's going to be in there. So I made Christmas Hallmark movie bingo cards.
Did you really?
Yes.
Okay, I was joking about the check mark.
No, I made them up. I knew exactly what was going to, and so we sat around we did it for like 2 or 3 movies, and it got old after a while, but it was fun to, you know, old pickup truck, you know, dog, kiss under the mistletoe, you know, all the, you know, decorate the Christmas tree,
right.
You know, all the standard items that you could picture in a Hallmark Christmas movie. And so
I don't enjoy Hallmark Christmas movies. I guess I like the theming, but it's all over the top. So it feels, again, a little fake and a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not going to argue with you on that.
No. But I love that people love them. Yeah. And it can be part of
It's predictable and, yeah, for the most part. Yeah. The other thing that's a little more serious that Macy and I started when we were, this was probably the first time we were able, well, I can't remember the first time, but I remember the first time it stands out in my mind was when we were visiting family. And for the first few years of our marriage, we were not able to go back. We couldn't afford to go home. But going back and having the opportunity to be with family. But before we did anything on Christmas Day with the family, the 2 of us in the room, just reading through the Luke 2 Christmas story together. And so we've kept that. That's okay. Hello, this just in. Got something to put on the Christmas list. So we would read that together and pray together. And so we've kept that, even though, you know, we don't, you know, it's not, that was like our moment to be together when we had all family around us. And we still are usually with family on Christmas. So it kind of still fits a lot of times, even if family's with us or we're with them. It's something that we look forward to doing.
That's really special. I think that kind of the unity of that, even with all the busyness, because you can do other things too that are fun, but keeping the focus before the busyness. Yeah, that's pretty.
Why do you think we have these traditions? Why, you know, where, you know, you've got a long list of things that you guys do, and you mentioned kind of where some of them come from, but why do we do them and why are they important?
Maybe back to human nature, you know, repetition when teaching children is important. I think being part of a family helps you know where you come from. So there are those that your family kind of creates natural traditions for the whole year. And so when you have special things, I think of the early church and them trying to celebrate the birth of Christ and, you know, remembering this happened, this is special to us, let's do something to commemorate. And they were gathering together. And so, as you know, all of those reasons help us into making it a habit, making it memorable, repeating things helps us to remember.
Yeah, the learning aspect is huge.
Right, because we are teaching people.
Yeah. I think also, especially when you think about our world today, how much is changing, and to have something that is constant, relatively constant. So, you know, we see every year for our Christmas Eve service, you know, families that have been coming to this for years, people that, don't even go to our church anymore, but still come back for that because this is a family tradition. I think they're looking for those things that are the same. There is a constant there. And obviously there's a great message as well, but there is, I think, something to say for tradition that gives, it does root us and grounds us in something.
Do you have any like decorations or Christmas ornaments that you remember seeing as a child and just like memories are tied to them? Mm-hmm. I think of some things that we would take out of the Christmas box that I saw year after year that just reminded me that, we were together. This was Christmas.
Yep.
My mom had a really pretty log with the candles.
Oh, yeah.
And so we would burn those and, talk about the elements of why Jesus came and what that means to us.
Yeah. And I think for families, and I'd love to hear some of your thoughts because I know you have three children, and some of the traditions that you have been somewhat intentional in maybe starting new for you as a family, or things that have been passed down from either your family or from Nate's. But what are some of the things that you've done to try to strengthen your children's faith and keep them rooted in the reason why we celebrate Christmas?
Well, straight up making space for Christmas Eve and those things, making church a priority year round, but also at Christmas means that we're together focusing on the Lord. I think culture can pull us away at Christmas time. It gets away from, many people. The busyness or the activities, the options, things, it seems like school and activities all ramp up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can get diverted, but if you focus on, the church and times together to focus on Jesus, I think there's a start.
Yeah.
But it's not just that, it has to be an outcome. And missions is pretty strong in our heart as a family. We want it to be the heartbeat of our children. It's commanded in the Bible, So we do a cookie party that's culturally appropriate. People bring a dozen cookies of any kind and leave with a dozen of a mixture for our neighbors, because we found that in 2022 America, it is really hard to meet and minister to your neighbors. So at that time, we want to celebrate with them, have a reason for them to come in our home as many times as possible, but this is a really easy one, and then talk about why we celebrate at Christmas time.
So the Flood Christmas Cookie Exchange
That's
tradition.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like on year 7 or something.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's, small, but it's enough that our neighbors, we live in a street, so we invite everyone on the street, and people who come. Sometimes people buy a box of cookies at the grocery store, and others make their family traditional cookies. We've had German cookies and French cookies, and we have a cool neighborhood. But
that's neat.
Yeah.
You mentioned a moment ago about our culture, and in the middle of the holiday season like this, it is so overwhelmingly, non-Christian in its emphasis. And so to do what we can, I think, to be intentional with those traditions with family, to look for ways to instruct. And even if you don't have little children at home anymore, to still look for ways to keep your own heart and mind focused on the real reason for Christmas. And so I think traditions can help you do that. And, just having this conversation with you has reminded me of, maybe, we need to come up with a couple of new traditions a little sooner before waiting, till Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, and
That's true.
helping us stay focused on the true meaning of Christmas. So some good things. Any other final thoughts or examples of maybe some examples on how somebody can get started? If we don't really have any good traditions, what would be an easy tradition to get rolling? Anything?
Well, I think of starting traditions as being intentional. You want to think about the outcome. So what are the goals that you want to see this happen? And planning around making that happen. We as a family, so my family was a little less organized than Nate's family, and I will admit that. And so some of the traditions that we have had to decide on. Like, this is what we want to do. This is how we want to spend our time and our money. And so talking about that as a couple or, with friends, if you're single, saying, these are my values. This is one of the things that I want to accomplish over Christmas time for my benefit, for benefit of others, and then making those kind of small goals to make it happen. One of the things that came to mind was gift giving. I think that is a great expression of our love for one another and celebrating the season, but it's gotten out of control. And when you think about the season, trying to thank teachers or thank neighbors or thank, your mailmen, some people are really sweet to those that serve them, reminding us that we're giving because Jesus gave, I think is something that has made sense to me. It's made sense to our kids. When we get caught up in the I want this, I want that, remembering, like anchoring it in, we give because Jesus gave, not because we want to get something.
Right.
So that's a little bit of the outcome.
Well, I think we'll challenge our listeners to look for a way to start their own, or maybe one. They probably already have some traditions, but maybe start a new tradition that is centered around the true biblical reason why we celebrate Christmas. And I think that would be a good challenge to look for one new tradition that you could start this year. Now, I know you don't have a lot of time. But
popcorn and cranberries.
Popcorn and cranberries. If you haven't done that, there's a great one to to get started. Or even, if you don't have a nativity scene laying around the house that you could, or maybe it hadn't been pulled out in a long time, pull that out. And even, whether it's with the kids or without the kids, to kind of set that up and walk through the Christmas story together. There's lots of ways that you could start a new Christmas tradition focused on Christ.
Absolutely.
Were you getting ready to say something?
Well, so the nativity scene comes to mind. We were given one as a gift when the kids were small. It's a VeggieTale nativity. And so that we put down near the floor level so that anyone who's small can find it, touch it, play with it, making Jesus accessible.
Yes, yeah.
But it reminds me that Christmas traditions can be applicable to all of us. And we can do them at any age, with any kind of family, with a friend group or as a couple. I think it's really...
Yeah. It doesn't have to be just with family. That's a good point. It could be with friends, neighbors, whatever. Yeah. Well, I think we have covered a lot with family traditions and traditions in general as it relates to Christmas, and even given our listeners a challenge. And I'll encourage them to continue listening, because next Thursday, 1 week from today, we'll have another episode. And spoiler alert, it's my favorite one. It's about food.
Yummy.
Go ahead and say it. We're talking about food.
I love Christmas.
But I think this wraps up our first Remembering Christmas special Christmas podcast for 2022. Thank you, Danielle, for joining and co-hosting with me. And we'll be right back here next week.